my dream, my dream, my dream, my dream, my dream. Tell you my dream is to live my dream. Hear the most I in me sleep when me sleep. Tell you my goal.
Hello to you and welcome to this edition of My Dream. My name is Sharon Jirwa. Today we feature Chawa Munthali, who is talking about his career in horticulture. Let's find out exactly how he is living his dream.
So, basically, Chawa is a passionate young leader, and by profession, I am a horticulturist, trained at University of Malawi, that was Bunda, then, now Luana, and I find a lot of joy in working with the community and interacting with the youth. I mean, working across various community activities, and I find it very interesting. So Chawa is just like that, in someone who likes what he does, picking up challenges and exploring new things in life and being challenged to do things that people maybe feel you can't get out of it with anything else, but that is what Chawa likes doing. I am a person who grew up in a family of 7 children, and my dad and my mother are farmers, and when we were growing up they were still farmers. We used to do farming, and I think at the early years of our time back then, our family was really that type that could not manage to provide for the kids to get good education. Being a child that grew up in a very village setup. So yeah, and then something very interesting that I really don't want to miss when someone asks me about that is the fact that from that family which wasn't able to even pay a school fees for the child, I managed to sponsor my education, secondary school, and got selected to University of Malawi, sponsored my education at university level, and graduated. I am very proud when I say I graduated with a credit degree because it speaks a lot to me than what someone would really get it right. So all my siblings in the family haven't gotten the education. It's only me that went up to the university. So that's what I can say about the brief background from where I come from, and basically what someone would start thinking about the Chawa that they see today. Well, something very inside me was just pushing that I can't really explain. But I remember one of the days when I was with my brother and we were going around some places in Mzuzu, because that's where I grew up. I found some people talking, two women were talking about their children graduating from the university, and they were sharing, oh, my daughter is graduating next year, and the other one, oh, mine graduated last year. And I told my brother that time and said, you know what? It always pains me when people talk about people graduating from the university, and I always ask myself, like, what type of people really do go to the university? And he would always like, oh, but one day you will make it, or one day you will make it. I never really imagined how that would come about, and then I said to myself, if I don't do something to this status of my life, I think I will live like this for the rest of my life. And the only thing that can change me is that I need to get education. And I made that a very big point, because at every time I used to go out to do piecework, the only things I could buy with my money were books. So I made sure I had huge heaps of books, preparing myself for education. And that's how I kept myself going, So that's it. First, I wanted to become a doctor. And I think because a lot of people used to tell me that you could be a good doctor. It really wasn't in me. But what was really in me was agriculture. Because I grew up in an agriculture family and always asked questions why my parents could not do well farming every time in the years. But I think we never got out something that pushed our lives to get a little bit better in terms of family finances. So I wanted to really understand and see how I could contribute to looking at how a smallholder farmer out there could access some good stuff in education and better their lives. Yeah, well, when I was going to the university, I had signed up for a medical course at Mzuzu University that was nursing. I think they picked me, later disqualified me. I was frustrated, but I said, well, it happens. I accepted it. And then I sat for the University of Malawi entrance exams. I chose all the courses from Bunda, but unfortunately, from all the courses that I chose, they didn't pick me on either of the courses. They gave me a different course, which I wasn't very sure about what I would be doing in college. I was really frustrated. I tried to change when I went to the school, but it didn't work. In the second year, College of Medicine announced for the admission applications. I applied to do an MBBA course at College of Medicine. I went there, sat for the entrance again. And what was very shocking about that is the fact that I was called that I was successful, but later on the registrar said, but we disqualified you because the way we know about Form 4 kids and how they write, how they can pass our entrance, this was beyond what we expect from any candidate that sits for our entrance. And we set up an inquiry and discovered that you are at Buddha College, so you are disqualified. And that was another big frustration. And so I just said, I think it is really agriculture that is in me. I accepted being at Rwanda, doing a course that I never applied for, but later on I found myself that I was in the right channel and I like it so much, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing every day until today. There's a very poor perception about what agriculture as a course is in Malawi, and I think this is very, very important and very crucial. People out there, when they apply for the courses and they talk about Rwanda, they always feel like, oh, when you go to Bunda or Rwanda, you just be talking about horse and farming and getting the seeds and planting, and I heard that people go out for practicals and they would be farming in the field and all that type of misconceptions. Agriculture is very broad, because like me, within the agriculture, I only specialized in horticulture. And horticulture is all about fruits, is all about vegetables, is all about mushrooms, landscaping, designs, and maintenance. And you're talking about all the flowers. That sounds a small section in agriculture, but it's very broad. So yes, we have the economic part of agriculture, we have the agribusiness part of agriculture, we have the agronomy part of agriculture, and we have the engineering part of agriculture. So it's very broad, and I think someone would choose what they would really be interested to do within the agriculture setup. So agriculture is not just all about farming and getting to the field. It's about policies, it's about markets, it's about the economy, and after all, our country is agriculture based, and we all agree on that one. And that means we need to do something very well in that sector to make sure that things begin to work out for the nation as well. when we were at school, horticulture is a course people would always like, oh, when you graduate, you'll be working in the flowers, in the roads, shaping our roads and planting flowers in the highways and all that. And that type of intimidation really brainwashes. You start feeling like, I think I'm really not doing anything. But I think I was very brave. Coming from the background that I've just explained in brief, I was a person who was always ready to challenge myself and take up things that people thought a horticulturist cannot do, and that is what I'm actually doing until today. I have worked for a couple of organizations before I started thinking about now settling down on what I'm doing today, running my own organization and setting up a private company as well, which is running on the ground. It was challenging, but yeah, I really picked it. And if just on record, for record's sake, I have worked for Red Cross, Malawi Red Cross Society. I worked for the Ministry of Agriculture as a crops officer. I have done some work with Malawi Mangoes as a research and development officer in Sarima, which is a very huge fruit producing company in Malawi, and of course also processing. And just a month ago, I was also there on a consultancy work. I have done some personal consultancies with different organizations. So I think I never sank myself in the horticulture perspective, but I broadened up my mind and said, hey, this is my country, this is Chawananga, I can do anything. I mean, there's no limit about what I can do and what I cannot do, which is a very restricting factor when it comes to people coming out of college and now trying to look at the industry and say, so what am I going to be doing? Yeah, so that's how I defined myself. No boundaries. Yeah. Well, I think, in my view, the biggest challenge that we have, I wouldn't start talking about things that really, I think, on a daily basis we talk about them, but the greatest challenge is the conviction that someone convinces himself and says, I am ready because the challenges are there and that is obvious. But I think it's something that someone really has to stand tall above all the fears and making sure that while all those challenges are being talked about, you are worthy doing anything that you think you can do to get through all the opportunities that are out there. Yeah, but specifically, maybe, yeah, I think people talk about, we can talk about the financing part of it, the resources. To start something, you need to have the resources. That is what all of us will be talking about. I don't have the resources, but I think sometimes the biggest resource that we have is the brain and yourself. You pick up yourself and your brain and say, I gotta find the resources because they are not just everywhere. You need to put up some ways of how you can get the resources. That's one thing that we talk about most of the time. But for me, the greatest challenge is where someone is convinced that they are capable of doing something, which most of us, I think, we have not gotten there. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting for me because now I'll be talking about the real things that are out there. Horticulturists are what the country needs. Malawi needs horticulturists, and we need as much as possible to genuinely promote the horticulture sector and put up as much investment as possible. I will talk of opportunities in two ways. In terms of employment, now horticulture is a course that I think as a country we recognize it late than most of our countries that we are bordering with, like South Africa. I think horticulture has been very well developed and they're doing fine. And in fact, you and me, when we get to ShopRite and get on all those shelves, all the apples, all the vegetables, all the things, the fresh produce that you have there, South Africa. So that means we have opportunities. If we can buy vegetables from South Africa, we have opportunities, huge. And there are a lot of companies that are coming in, investing in horticulture, so a horticulturist would get an employment. But for me, the most important opportunity in the market that a horticulturist has is that we have the skills that can make us create our own employment. We don't need anyone to employ us. With all the knowledge that we have producing all those high value crops out there, we have what it takes to create our own employment. And that's the strength, because that course is practical based. as I said, all the fruits, I can't mention them one by one, all of them, all the vegetables, the mushrooms, the flower industry, like Kenya is doing. We are not doing anything. We are not exporting any flowers. We are not exporting vegetables, but we have the potential. Now Malawi Mangoes, as an example of the company that I've worked for, they're exporting a lot of mangoes to Russia, to India, to Lithuania at a very substantive price that we can talk about, and it's bringing forex. So that's the opportunity that I can dwell on as much as possible, other than the conventional way of looking at opportunities and saying, oh, I am a graduate, I need to look for jobs. Yeah, I think there's no limitation about who can become a horticulturist. Everyone can become a horticulturist, not actually by only having the formal way of learning, like Chawanangwa went to Bunda and took a degree in horticulture. I think horticulture is more to that. It's practical based. The skills are what we need. So women, youth, older people, they can all become horticulturists. It doesn't have any geographical limitation. Actually, one time we went to Mulanje Mountain. There are villages up there. That's where most of the bananas are coming from. And people are horticulturists there because they're producing a lot of bananas that are consumed in Blantyre and some other parts of Lilongwe. Here, they come from there. So they are horticulturists by practicing, not by training. Yeah, so as a horticulturist, I think the most important thing is to recognize that the degradation, the environmental degradation is taking place, and generally the climates are changing, and the soils are no longer the same. And I mean, there are all those imported commodities which are pushing a lot of competition on our local produce. But one thing stands out. We need to produce something that is of good quality. It's quality that speaks. As far as we dwell on the quality, we will remain competitive in the sector. And I hope that is very, very important, because lifestyles in towns here are changing. People don't just look for any product. They are looking for a product that would match, the value of the money that are dishing out for that particular product. People are mindful of their health. So if we're still looking at those products where people are packaging them in, these common packaging materials that we see out there, we will not remain relevant. We will easily be pushed out of the market, but we need to look at the quality. Quantity also matters, because I was looking at export. They would be telling you about how much you need to export in terms of the minimum tonnage. So, like, people would cry out, no, we don't have markets. But I always say, we have all the markets, but we don't have the produce. We need to start producing in quantities and volumes that will speak on the international market, that will speak in terms of quality, even on the local market. Then there, we'll get there. Well, I think in everything that we do, myself, I have always convinced myself and said, anything that is done out of passion is not done emotionally. There's a very good balance that you need to strike at the end of the day to make sure that you win, and the people that you're working for, they also win. At the end of the day, we all need to understand that anybody's emotions are unique. People cannot just live like robots, and they can just do what I want them to do like a programmed robot. So I have my own ethics and the things I always have to uphold in the work that I do, but I also need to understand the needs of the people and the dynamics of the communities that we're working with. Yeah, so there's a lot of patience that is needed. And because there is passion as a very crucial ingredient, at the end of the day, you carry the day. So yeah, I work with groups of youth that are organized as farming groups. I work with a group of youth that are just using their talent to make out a living on their daily basis. And I work with groups of women that are in agriculture and working on different value chains. And each of the groups is unique at the end of the day, but I cannot expect exactly people giving me out what I think is going to come out. I need to be a little bit more patient, and making sure that you also give it a percentage of some frustration, that people will frustrate you, but you will always be ready for that. And just on the same, one thing I cannot finish before I say it is the fact that one of the things that we really need to work on when we think of working with the community, on working with different groups of people on different activities, is the fact that people will always have their own way of thinking. And you should always be ready to be frustrated. And when that happens, you say, hi, I was ready, and yeah, tomorrow you come back, that is gone. And you start on a fresh thing. I also find that to be something very, very interesting, because at the end of the day, what matters more is how parents might also help their children to approach life. So parents also need to understand that much as they have expectations from their children also have their own expectations according to their experiences that they have acquired through the life that they've been living. So in horticulture, yes, as a horticulturist, you know, I have been out of employment. I have been out of employment for 5 years now. I am not employed by anyone else, but I am able to run my personal consultancies. I am able to run my own businesses, produce some things in the field, work with the communities, and get what I want at the end of the day. So if I am able to survive, live in town, pay for my house, pay for my school kids in primary school, and they're able to go to a decent school, not expensive, but a decent school, I think that is something that is worthwhile for me, because that is, at the end of the day, basically that's what all of us want. So I would comfortably say, yes, we have all the opportunities that someone with the horticultural background is not just a person that goes out on the street and they have nothing to do, but they can make out a life out of the course that they did in horticulture. I have developed some interest in doing some charity. Like usually when I'm free, even back from the festive season that I've just passed, I will go out in the communities, identify the kids that are needy, go out, take out some balls, take out some playing stuff with the kids, do some games, and always speak to them and inspiring them. And that's what makes my life. You know, I always tell people, like those kids and the old women, the old men in the villages, and say, out of every background, anybody can become someone. It doesn't take anything like, oh, I was born in this family and I think with my background I cannot do anything. So I like speaking to the youth, as I say, when I'm free, inspiring them to be people that would be ready to make a difference in their own life, but also in the lives of their communities, in the lives of their families, and telling them that they have the potential in them, that they can become anybody they wish in life. So I have some kindergarten schools that I'm supporting around the villages, which I established with my resources, and I would go there, play with the kids. That's what I enjoy most doing. Other than sometimes, yeah, there are different things I would mention, but that is what takes most of my time when I say, today I am free, I would go out. as we come towards the end of the program, I have a few things that I would want to say to the youth out there, which is very, very, very important. In everything that we do, passion stands out. And it is very, very important to realize that inside us lies the potential that we can do great things beyond what we think about ourselves. And that is something that has always been a driving factor about myself. And I have seen things working out from where people or even myself thought nothing else would come out. I think, as someone said, that must be Martin Luther, and said, there is nothing like a better time that we will have to make a difference in our lives. The better time we have is now. And the moment we think about something that we can do, it's high time that we take an action. And my name is Chawa Munthali. You are watching Times TV.
Well, I sure hope that you've been inspired by Jawanango's story and that you too believe in making your dream into a reality. You've been with me, Chawa Munthali. Do keep watching Times TV.
Let me start that one here. Like how Martin Luther King would have started. My dream, my dream, my dream, my dream, my dream. Tell you my dream is to live my dream. Yeah, the most I in me sleep when me sleep. Tell you